All right, so we're going to start off with a little review today. Remember we talked about the segment addition postulate, the pieces add up to the whole. An easier example that might help you a little bit was if we had 1 and 5, you would tell me that this whole thing was 1 plus 5, this whole thing was 6. All right, the pieces add up to the whole. Now obviously this example is a lot harder than that, but it's still the same concept. The pieces, KL and LM, should add up to equal KM, the whole thing. So let's add our pieces. X plus 0.5 plus, we're going to add our pieces, 3x minus 2. Those are our two pieces. And they should add up to equal the whole thing, which is 3x plus 1.5. Now that was the only geometry. The segment addition postulate was the only geometry to this problem. Everything from here on out is algebra. So let's combine like terms. 1x and 3x makes 4x. 0.5 minus 2 makes negative 1.5. And we're going to bring all this down. 3x plus 1.5. Now whatever we do to one side, right, we do to the other. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. You could have started elsewhere. It's okay. 4x minus 3x is 1x. Still minus 1.5. Those will cancel, that's why you did it, and we're left with 1.5 over here. And then we're going to add 1.5 to both sides to get x alone. So we're going to wind up with those cancel. We get x equals 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. Now notice I didn't box that in because that's not my answer. And again, geometry is notorious for this. Make sure you read the question. They want us to find LM. So we know LM, L to M, equals 3x minus 2. So we're going to plug in our variable. So we have 3, we know x is 3 minus 2. So we have 9 minus 2. 9 minus 2 is 7. That is our final answer. So the length of LM is 7. So just a little review. Hopefully clear things up for you. Today we're going to move into pairs of angles. So today you're going to be able to identify different angle pairs and what that means and how to work with them. So the first one is adjacent. Adjacent means touching. So they're right next door to each other. They will have a common vertex and they will share a side, but they will have no common interior points. This is angle 1. Everything in here is only angle 1. This is angle 2. Everything in here is angle 2. So there's no overlap. If you're looking in this picture, 1 and 4 are adjacent. They're right next door. 2 and 1 are adjacent. They're right next door. So adjacent means touching. Linear. So linear, we hear the word line. Right? We hear the word line. Linear means line. So two angles that form a line. Now they do have to be adjacent in order for them to form that line. So notice they have common vertex and they share a side. So they are adjacent. So if you ever say something's a linear pair, they're also going to be adjacent. Notice they form a line, so we think 180 degrees. All right, 180 degrees in a line. Vertical. So vertical, it's always got to be two lines crossing. So notice this is a solid line and a solid line. And then your vertical angles are non-adjacent. So 1 and 3. Are not adjacent. Those would be your vertical angles. 2 and 4 would be vertical angles. So you actually have two pairs of vertical angles here. 2 and 4 are vertical, and then 1 and 3 are vertical. And then we move on to complementary versus supplementary. Complementary are two angles that add up to 90. They don't have to be adjacent. They can be, but they don't have to. So if they were adjacent, you'd be looking at this picture. Right? Angle 1 and angle 2 add up to 90. They make a right angle. So those would be adjacent complementary angles. Or they don't have to be. You could have a 45-degree angle here and a 45-degree angle over here. All right, so we're going to call this A and B. Oh, I guess I should have put it at the vertex. I could have put the vertex here. But those, again, would be complementary because they add up to 90, but they don't have to be next to each other. They could be on two separate sheets of paper. Okay, as long as they add up to 90, they are complementary. Supplementary should add up to 180. Again, they could be adjacent. They could be right next to each other. In that case, it would be a linear pair, right? So if they were right next door to each other, these would be considered a linear pair. They form a line. They're adjacent. They're right next door to each other. And they're supplementary. We know they add up to 180. So that would be like all that apply type of thing. Or you could have like a 100-degree angle and maybe an 80-degree angle. And again, A and B add up to 180, so yes, they would be supplementary. So all you know when you hear those words complementary and supplementary are complementary add up to 90, supplementary add up to 180. They could be next door to each other, they might not. So I have a little trick that helps you remember. If you look at complementary, remember they should add up to 90. Check this out. Complementary add up to 90, 90. If it helps, I mean, it's totally up to you, but if you just draw that line straight down, there's your 90. So complementary add up to 90. Just a little trick to help you remember which one's which. So this says describe the angle pair using vocab. So we're looking for words like linear pair, supplementary, adjacent. So let's look. Angle 8 and angle 5. Angle 8 and angle 5. Well, those are two lines crossing, right? RU and QT. And they're not adjacent. Those are vertical angles. All right, remember vertical angles, you're looking at this picture. All right, 1 and 2 would be vertical. So in this case, there's your X. Let's see if I can highlight it for you. All right, 8 and 5 are vertical angles. 6 and 5, well, 6 and 5 are right next door to each other, so we would call them adjacent. They also form a straight line, so we would call those linear pair. And if they're a linear pair, you know, they add up to 180, so they're also supplementary. So that one had a lot of stuff to it. 7 and 5, it looks like 7 and 5 are right next door to each other, so they're adjacent. And that's it. All right, we don't know they definitely don't form a line. We don't know what they add up to, so we can't say complementary, supplementary. And that's all we got. 7 and 6. 7 and 6. Those actually have no relation. They're not adjacent. Right? 7 and 5 are adjacent. 7 and 6 are not adjacent. They're not vertical because you don't see those two lines crossing. You don't see that X, right? The two lines crossing. So no relationship. So if there's no relationship, that's fine. You don't have to make one. If there's no relationship between the angles, then let it be. Next one says find the complement to angle F. So when I hear the word complement, I think 90 degrees. So we want to know what the complement to angle F is. All right, so we take 90 degrees, subtract out 59, and we get 31 degrees. Because 31 and 59 add up to 90, they would be complements to each other. Next one says find the supplement. Right? So when we hear supplement, we think of 180. Now this one's a little bit harder, but we're still going to think the same way. So off this for a second, if I told you this was 50, right, and I wanted the supplement, well, you would say supplementary is 180, subtract out 50, you know the supplement is 130, right? So 130 and 50 add up to 180. So you're subtracting. You're still going to do the same thing here, except for you're subtracting kind of an ugly angle. So you would still use that same concept, 180 minus the angle we already know, 7x plus 10. So I know it's a little weird, you know, it's much easier to say 180 minus 50 and get that answer, that numerical answer. But sometimes a little algebra pops up. So let's distribute. So we have 180, negative 7x, and negative 10. So 180 minus 10, we're going to combine like terms. We have 1 70, and we have minus 7x. And as ugly as that looks, I know you don't like that as an answer, but that is your answer. 7x plus 10 plus 170 minus 7x, these should add up to 180. Right? They should add up to 180, and they will. If you add those up, you'll get 180. 170 plus 10 is 180, and 7x minus 7x will cancel. So they do get a little bit harder. So this says an angle's measure is 12 more than half the measure of its supplement. That's a lot of words. Find the measure of the angle. So an angle's measure is 12 degrees more than half the measure of its supplement. Okay, well before I start, let's start with the word supplement. Supplement, we think 180. So you know you have two angles. We're going to say x and y that add up to 180. That's what the word supplement tells me. And you know one of those angles, doesn't matter which one, let's say y, is 12 more than, so we're going to say y is 12 more than, so 12 plus, half the measure of the supplement. So half the measure of x. Alright, so instead of y, I'm going to plug this in. So I've got x, and then instead of y, I'm going to say it's 12 more than half. I'm going to write that as a decimal, 0.5. X still equals 180. So all we do is we plug that in. And now we can combine our like terms. 1x plus 0.5x makes 1.5x plus 12 equals 180. Subtract 12 from both sides. So we get 168. And then 168 divided by 1.5. Right, we're going to divide both sides by 1.5. You get x equals 112. So an angle's measure is 12 more than half the measure of its supplement. Here's your angle. Now, if we'd asked us to find both angles, we just know that it should add up to 180. Right? It should add up to 180. So 180 minus 112, you should get the other one 68. But we don't need that one. So we're here and we're stopping. And I believe this is the last example. So here you have a straight angle, also known as a linear pair. So we know they add up to 180. So we know these two angles, should add up to equal 180. So 11x minus 12 plus 2x plus 10 should equal 180. Again, that's the only geometry. The rest is algebra. 11x and 2x makes 13x. Negative 12 and 10, we're going to combine like terms, makes negative 2. We're going to add 2 to both sides. We get 13x equals 182. And then we're going to divide both sides by 13. And we get x equals 14. Now, again, that's not my answer. They want the measure of angle DEC. So DEC, we're going to plug it in. 11 times 14 minus 12. So 11 times 14 gets me 154 minus 12 gets me 142. And then here, 2 times 14 plus 10. So 28 plus 10 is 38 degrees. And that would be CEF. And again, they should add up to 180, so you can check your work. 142 plus 38 is 180. All right, there's your homework. It is posted to Google Classroom. Tell me if you have any issues. Get it done.